Do want to get to our top stories this morning. The state of Minnesota, along with the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, are being sued over immigration enforcement policies.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced that 34-page lawsuit saying, quote, Minnesota officials, are jeopardizing the safety of their own citizens. Our Barrett Leone joining us from the live desk this morning as Twin City leaders this morning reacting to those claims. Barrett?
Yeah, that's right. Strong words from the mayors of both Minneapolis and St. Paul last night in response to the filing. The lawsuit directly names Minnesota, both Twin Cities, Hennepin County and the sheriff there, and the Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. The lawsuit says that sanctuary city policies are illegal under federal law and is asking a judge to invalidate sections of the state constitution and city codes. Both Minneapolis and St. Paul have city ordinances that prohibit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement, and federal prosecutors claim the policies are unconstitutional, adding the ordinances, quote, results in the release of dangerous criminals from police custody who would otherwise be subject to removal. Here's what both mayors had to say in response to the lawsuit.
We will not back down. We will fight with every bit of our strength for our immigrant communities. We will stand by our neighbors, and we're going to win in court.
In St. Paul, we know that true safety comes from trust, respect, and care. That's why we stand with our immigrant and refugee neighbors, never against them.
Now, it is important to note the state of Minnesota has no law making it a sanctuary state. We also know that U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services will be hosting a press conference today in Minneapolis related to an immigration fraud detection operation. We will have a crew there, and we'll bring you any updates as we learn them.
Right, and we knew this was coming after Minnesota was put on that list from the DOJ back in August about this, but now officially here the lawsuit. Barrett, thank you.
Well, the federal government could run out of funding in less than 24 hours' time. That's unless Congress cuts a deal.
White House meeting yesterday ended with a whole lot of finger pointing and no agreement. The Republican-led House passed a short-term bill to keep the government funded at current levels through November. But congressional Democrats have put up a counteroffer to keep things running through the end of October. They also want to permanently extend Affordable Care Act subsidies that are set to expire at the end of the year, as well as reverse funding cuts to Medicaid.
We're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing.
But it's in the president's hands whether to avoid a shutdown or not. He has to convince the Republican leaders.
So if there is a shutdown, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid payments, those will continue, but national parks and national museums, those will close.
We also know a government shutdown would temporarily put thousands of Minnesotans out of work because Minnesota has nearly 21,000 federal employees, everyone from air traffic controllers to meteorologists and DEA agents. Most of them would be furloughed. Those deemed essential, like law enforcement agents and airport employees, would continue to work but would not be paid until after the shutdown ends. Most federal government offices would close, but people would still get their Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid payments. Other payments, like a nutrition program for children and mothers, would eventually run out of funds.
More tariff troubles this morning. One of the top buyers of Minnesota soybeans isn't paying up this year, and that could mean a big hit to Minnesota farmers. China is usually the top buyer of U.S. soybeans, but the trade dispute with President Trump has them buying from South America instead. Sixth-generation corn and soybean farmer Matt Purfist says that his family farm has some domestic buyers, but that pales in comparison to the international buyers, and that means soybeans could sit in bins or be sold at lower prices.
So the fact that we are losing one of our biggest exporters for the soybean crop in Minnesota is a huge deal. We're seeing prices right now right around $10 a bushel for soybeans. At the peak this summer, you could probably get close to $10.75. So prices actually are holding in there, but it kind of feels like we're going towards a cliff a little bit.
So even if Congress does give more aid to farmers this year, Purfist says it's just a Band-Aid. He's more concerned about that long-term trading relationship.
The Minneapolis mayoral race is continuing to cause division between Democrats. State DFL leaders have denied an appeal by the Minneapolis party leaders to overturn a controversial endorsement decision. So over the summer, the city's DFL party gave its endorsement to State Senator Omar Fateh, but state DFL leaders tossed out those results. They said there were flaws in the convention's voting system. Last night, the Rules and Bylaws Committee rejected an appeal by a vote of 40-7.
New this morning, a fire at a Minneapolis mosque is causing concerns and calls for an investigation. So we do have a photo. This is posted by the Minnesota chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CARE. And they say this fire erupted at Al Hikma Mosque. It was about 5:30 last night, and that security cameras recorded an unidentified person leaving the area. CARE is now calling for an investigation into possible bias motive for the fire. Says they'll share more details later on today. We have reached out to the police and fire departments and are still waiting to hear back.